Hi everybody, my name is Victoria. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am very excited to tell you that I finished Rhythm of War, finally. So I thought I would go ahead and put my spoiler-filled thoughts out there on the YouTube. Most people read this way before I did and finished it. So I haven't talked to a lot of people. I would like to have a little discussion about what happened in this crazy book. If you aren't aware, Rhythm of War is the fourth book in the Stormlight Archives series. So if you have not read any of the Stormlight Archives before, I highly recommend you stop watching this video because I am going to just go into spoilers right away. That being said, let's forge ahead and have a little discussion. So I think I had a bit of a mixed experience with Rhythm of War. I didn't love it from the outset, and I even had to put it down, restart it again, because I was kind of just not getting momentum into it. Part of that was my fault. I was reading many other things at the same time, reading multiple books at once. And that sometimes will work for me, sometimes doesn't. So I did have to put it down and then pick it up again when I had the mental headspace for it. And I think that's really the key to the enjoyment of these massive books, is having the headspace for them. I think I didn't at first. I had also read all of the other books back to back with a lovely group of people, Storm Along 2020. Not having a deadline, I think, really allowed me to stretch this book out in a way that I probably shouldn't have. I should have just started and then gone with it. So for me, this book didn't hit me as hard as some of the previous books. However, I do still acknowledge that there are so many amazing things that happened in Rhythm of War. Although for some reason, I was a bit detached from it. I was maybe emotionally detached from it, and some of the things that happened with the characters were not my favorite. Just some of the focuses I thought were strange and different, and not that they're bad, but the overall structure of the book was different. The pacing was different, and so I really didn't know what to think about it, and I still kind of don't know what to think about it. I almost gave it 4 stars, and then the ending pushed it up for me, and I did settle on this is still a 5-star book for me. But it might be one of the lesser loved ones in the series for me right now, and I think there's a few factors that go into that. It'll be interesting when I reread this series, how I feel about it then. I also think there were a lot of larger Cosmere things that maybe went over my head. I haven't read Warbreaker, and I know that was an important one for this book. There was a lot of things that I probably missed, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about the characters that were featured in this book. I think that might be the best way to approach a book review for this, and I really just have a kind of stream of consciousness approach to this book review. So we're going to start with Kaladin and then see where this conversation takes us. So Kaladin's development was probably my favorite out of any other character in this book. We have had this long, really 4-book story with Kaladin, and we finally got to see some payoff for him in Rhythm of War. He comes into his own finally, and I think he is now elevated to a new place. He said the 4th ideal, which the 4th ideal was such a wonderful moment, and of course was the perfect ideal for Kaladin and everything that he's gone through up to this point. I accept that there will be those I cannot protect. Couldn't have been a more satisfying 4th ideal. That was very emotional to read, and it was absolutely my favorite ideal that Kaladin has said. Reading Kaladin was such an emotional up and down roller coaster of an experience in this book. Brandon Sanderson really whips him around. Whips him around like a rag doll, the poor character. It was really hard to read at times. He is in the lowest of lows, and then is in the highest of highs at the end, which is nice because we've seen Kaladin in a lot of lows, but as far as seeing him in highs, that hasn't happened as much. So it was so refreshing to get that finally for him in Rhythm of War. And let's not forget all of the crap that Moash and Odium we're putting him through. Frickin' Moash. I hate that guy. And of course, we can't talk about Kaladin without talking about the discussion of mental health in this book and really how well done that was. Sanderson really does his research when it comes to these sensitive topics, and I found this to be no different. I thought it was handled really well, and it's just not something that you see a lot in high fantasy books. This very relatable struggle, relatable character. Not that you don't see that. You do see things like that in fantasy books. Not that you can't relate to a fantasy character. But I think with the depth that we go into it with Kaladin, that is unique for fantasy. I thought Sanderson handled it with a lot of delicacy and a lot of wisdom and a lot of empathy. And he gets full marks for that. Also, getting to see Kaladin interact with Tien again was really unexpected for me personally, and welcome. I liked that we got that closure. Tien was really just a scar on his heart that he was not going to let go of until he had that closure moment, and it was nice that he got that in a small way. I also really enjoyed seeing the relationship between Kaladin and Lirin and this very strained father-son relationship. I think another really relatable struggle that we see Kaladin go through is a strained relationship with his parents. And we see how his broken relationship with his father and the healing that has to take place there is very central to Kaladin and his own emotional well-being, which makes all the sense in the world. I also loved that we have kind of another father figure for Kaladin, and that's Dalinar. Dalinar really steps in as kind of a grandfatherly figure to Kaladin, and I really enjoyed that new aspect of their relationship. Dalinar really looks out for Kaladin in this book. I felt like Dalinar was sort of the father figure that Kaladin maybe needed in the moment, because Dalinar can relate to Kaladin as far as being a soldier, and in a way that Lirin obviously cannot relate to him. And I also want to mention another really important event for Kaladin, and that was losing Teft. Losing Teft was hard. I took it harder than I thought I would. I had a feeling someone was going to die in this book. Let's be real. Someone was going to die. It was probably going to be a very beloved member of Bridge 4. It being Teft was not fully unexpected, but it's still hard. We just grow to be so attached to these characters. And Teft had such a great arc in Oathbringer, and then to kind of bring his life to an end in Rhythm of War was very sad. I also nearly had a heart attack when Lift gets hurt and Moash attacks Lift, and I will kill you, Moash. Do not hurt my sweet baby Lift. I loved the insight we got into Lift's character. She uses Lifelight instead of Stormlight. That was neat to learn. We also get some heartbreaking backstory on Lift, in that she asked Cultivation to keep her the same and not let her change because she wanted to be the same as when her mother died, and so that she could preserve the memory of her mother. And that was just so heartbreaking. Oh my. I really enjoyed the little bits we got with Lift. I love that she eats Dalinar's lunch, and that's the last little bit we see of her in Rhythm of War. So characteristic. Let's talk about Adeline. I loved Adeline in this book. And I wasn't necessarily an Adeline hater before this, but Rhythm of War just gave me a whole new appreciation for him, and he's just the bestest friend that anyone could ever ask for. He's there for Kaladin while Kaladin's going through his anxiety attack. He's there for Shalon while Shalon's doing whatever the heck she's doing in this book. He's there for Maya, and it was just so great to see the strength of the bond between him and Maya. And I just feel like Adeline is just there for everybody else. And is anybody there for Adeline? I will be there for you, Adeline. I really think that Adeline deserves more praise, especially after the trial at Lasting Integrity, and the bravery he shows, the courage he shows, the sacrifice that he's willing to make. The chapter with the trial was actually probably one of my favorite chapters. When Maya talks of her own accord and she says, "We chose and you cannot have my sacrifice." I thought that was just such a great moment for Maya and for Adeline, and also to just learn more about the Radiance and the Spren, and that there was a very conscious decision made there, not just by the humans, but also by the Spren. There were just a lot of feels in that chapter, and I loved it. Okay, I need to talk about Navani, because Navani is such a central part of this book, and I'm going to be quite honest with you. I have not historically been a Navani fan. I was very hesitant about this whole Navani plotline, and that definitely affected my enjoyment for like the first half of the book. I was not jazzed about following Navani. I think my prejudice when it comes to Navani comes from just that I don't know about her and Dalinar, and I've never felt like that was a healthy relationship. I always felt like Navani pushed herself onto Dalinar and kind of like forced that relationship a little bit. I've just never, I've never clicked with Navani as a character. We've also never seen her from the inside before. We've always seen her from the outside. So I want to say, before I go any further, I stand corrected. Navani's a great character and I like her now. However, I want to say that Navani's sections where she gets very science technical and she's making all her discoveries, while it was cool and I was happy for her, I don't love all the details. I personally think Sanderson goes too far into some of those technical details sometimes. I don't think the reader needs all those details. I, for one, feel my eyes start to glaze over in some of those sections. And really, it's any time that fabrials are brought up and we're talking about how fabrials work, I've just never cared. I know that there's like legitimate cool science happening in those conversations, and I appreciate the work that Brandon Sanderson has taken into being able to write cohesively about fabrials and everything that he has constructed as far as that idea in Stormlight Archives, but I just never cared. I don't personally need to know how every little nitty-gritty thing works in a fantasy universe. In fact, I thought some of those sections take away from the story, and I was just like, yeah, but can we get to the actual action? Well, there's like an invasion happening, and we're talking about fabrials, and I don't care. I want to know what's happening with the invasion. Although, I will say, I did like how music was tied into the kind of technical aspect of Roshar, and I liked that because we do already know that the listeners and the singers are obviously a very musical people. And it was cool to see that kind of come full circle. And now we know that we have tones of Roshar, and then we have like songs that like do something and like fuse things together. I don't pretend to really understand how it works, but I thought it was cool. So while I didn't love those sections as much, I loved everything else that happened to Navani, especially Raboniel. We have to talk about Raboniel. I don't know if I'm saying that name right, but you know who I mean. The crazy fused lady who was super scary, the Lady of Pains, who basically hijacks Navani and uses her skills to get what she wants. But along the way, they become friends. That was so awesome. And through her experience with Raboniel, Navani learns that she's a badass and she's a scholar. And she learns things that Raboniel couldn't figure out in 1,000 years. Navani just like needs some scholarship time and figures it out. She's so awesome. It was also neat what Sanderson did with Raboniel and Navani, with the daughter of Raboniel and Navani getting to see a depth of humanity there that we've never seen with the Fused before. We actually see Raboniel as a human who has offspring and who cares about her daughter. And through the mercy killing of her daughter, I think Navani also builds a bond with Raboniel there as well, because Navani has also lost a child. She's lost Elhokar, and I think it bonds the two of them in a friendship in a way that goes quite a bit deeper than it would have previously if Navani hadn't have seen that humanity element to her. And the fact that at the end Raboniel also helps Navani, and Navani is able to get to the sibling thanks to Raboniel delaying Moash. And then they have their little sweet moment where they're like singing together and they do their little rhythm of war thing, and it's just so sweet. It's nice to see a female friendship. Positive female friendships are always nice to see. And Navani's ultimate showdown with Moash was everything that you could have wanted, and Moash gets some justice, finally, that jerk. And of course, Navani gets her amazing one-liner. Journey before destination, you bastard. It is by far the best Navani moment, and you just do a fist bump in the air because you're like, yeah, girl, get it. So in conclusion, once I didn't like Navani, now I do. I stand corrected. I'm sorry. Past Victoria was an idiot. Navani's awesome. Navani bonding to the sibling was a surprise. I definitely thought it was going to be Erlaine the whole time. Speaking of Erlaine, I'm super happy for him and his character development because I always knew that Erlaine was going to be important eventually. Somewhere down the road. He was going to be super important. I also love that Erlaine has been bonded to I'm going to mispronounce this, a Sja-anat spren, similar to Renarin, because Renarin, poor sweet weirdo little Renarin, is really alone in his own things he's dealing with. We didn't even see Renarin in this book, actually, like, at all. But Renarin is very alone because he's bonded to the corrupted spren. Now, we see another character who is bonded to that type of spren as well. Erlaine and Renarin are both very much outsiders in their own ways. Erlaine was an outsider from his people. Renarin was kind of an outsider from his people as well. They're both characters that live on the outskirts of social customs and society. And I think it's neat that they're both truth watchers and they are going to have this joint experience. I'm hoping to see a lot of Erlaine and Renarin together in the future and we get some actual Renarin perspective. It's something that has been killing me for so long. We need more Renarin. I need to learn about him. He's so mysterious to me still. And after this many pages, why is he still mysterious to me? I guess because Sanderson doesn't want me to know anything about Renarin. So I'm hoping to see more Erlaine and Renarin story going forward. One of the most unexpected events in this book by far was the invasion of Urithiru. Who saw that coming? I would have never thought that the Radiants would ever be that weak and that the Fused would be that strong. Didn't see that coming in the plot whatsoever. Urithiru was definitely, in my mind, just like impenetrable, and it was like the safe place for the Radiants, but Sanderson definitely shook that idea and turned it on its head. And not only did the invasion happen, it happened so fast. It was like the span of a day or like less than a day, and then they were taken over. It was crazy. It really made the stakes feel a lot higher, so I liked that decision to make the Fused really strong again. It makes the stakes feel more real. It makes me actually scared for my characters. It made me doubt whether or not they were going to be okay, and that makes a good story, I think, when you don't know what's going to happen and you don't know if your people are going to be okay. That's what happened to me in that part of the book. I was just not sure who was going to be okay and who wasn't. It was a scary time, my friends, a scary time, but a great time in the book, I would say. We need to talk about Shalon now, and this is maybe one of the reasons why I felt disconnected with this book for a while, because Shalon has been one of my favorite characters in the past. I didn't feel like we got a great development with her, which is ironic because she is like the cover art of the book, but she wasn't much of the focus, and that's fine. I didn't need a full focus on Shalon or anything. We got plenty of that in Words of Radiance, but I felt a little bit fatigued by her storyline, especially with the introduction of another personality, Formless, and then the whole storyline where Shalon apparently had another spren at one point and killed it. And I feel like this is a storyline that we did already, and then we're doing it again. I just felt a little bit like this was deja vu, and I wanted something new with Shalon, and this didn't feel super new to me. I was also sad that Vale gets absorbed into Shalon's personality again, because I was growing to really like Vale as a personality, and we spent a lot of time with her, and then she is gone now. And I get it. I get why she's gone. She's not needed anymore. Shalon can now deal with these memories herself, and Vale's purpose was served. But I liked Vale, and I'm gonna miss her. However, while I didn't love Shalon's storyline in this book, I am really happy that she has broken away from the Ghost Bloods. I think that's going to be something that's going to give us real repercussions And I assume that's more where Shalon's storyline is going to be going forward, because we still don't fully know a lot about the Ghostbloods. They're still pretty mysterious. And now that Shalon's kind of severed ties, I think she's going to have some consequences. I think we're going to learn more about the Ghostbloods and who they are, if I was going to predict going forward. The Ghostbloods to me has always been kind of a weird side plot, and I don't know if it's going to get better. I hope it does, because to me the Ghostbloods have just seemed kind of extra, and they haven't really seemed like that big of a threat, but I think they could be. So I don't know, we'll see. So in conclusion, as far as Shalon goes, I just felt like we had a lot of the same kind of reveals that we had in Words of Radiance happen again in Rhythm of War, just with a different spin on them. And I just wanted something new out of her storyline. But maybe we'll get more going forward, I assume. We have 6 more books to go, so I'm sure we're going to get some different things as far as Shalon is concerned. Taravangian. We have to talk about Taravangian. Taravangian. So he's Odium now. Didn't see that coming. Nope, not at all. And apparently Cultivation set him up for this. Cultivation wants him to be Odium because Ray's was so terrible, and now Taravangian, she thinks he's going to be better, maybe. I think she's very wrong, because I think we know how strange and messed up Taravangian's thinking is. I feel like Taravangian is sort of insane. I could be wrong about that, but I think his own mental health is not great. But I think it's bad. I think Taravangian being Odium is very, very bad. Very bad. We also get a bit of a cliffhanger here at the end with Dalinar and the champion, and knowing who's going to be the champion. He has to battle Odium's champion in 11 days, 11 days, something like 10 days, I think. Of course, 10. That's the magic number in Stormlight. 10 days. And who's going to be Dalinar's champion? It can't be Kaladin, because they already said it's not going to be Kaladin. I think it's going to be Dalinar himself. I can't imagine that Dalinar would pick anyone else. He's not going to pick Szeth. I think it's going to have to be Dalinar himself. And that would make the most sense to me. And Dalinar is the most badass warrior that has ever lived. He's just kind of old now, so I think he's just got to lift some weights and then he'll be ready to go. But I bet Dalinar still got it. This video is getting super long, so I'm going to try not to go on too much longer. But we have to also talk about the Heralds. We get a lot more Heralds in this book, which I thought was really cool. We see Ishar, and he is a crazy, crazy Herald. I predict that the Heralds are going to be a lot more in the forefront of the story. They've kind of been part of the lore, part of history up till this book, and then in this book I feel like they started to come more into the action, especially with the introduction of Ishar. And the fact that Ishar almost steals Dalinar's bond, I didn't even know that was a thing that could be done. And then the discovery of the Spren bodies, oh my gosh, that was very disturbing. That was a very creepy scene. I was almost having an out-of-body experience while reading it, because I was just what is this scene? This is so weird and not Brandon Sanderson. It's out of a horror novel suddenly. So Spren can have bodies maybe in the physical world, and Ishar is experimenting on them? What? I just don't know. But that scene was very creepy. Another development that I thought was a little bit off the wall, and I don't know how I feel about it, was Jasnah and Wit being in a relationship. That made no sense to me. I don't know if you guys ship them. I'm not sure I do. I think it's weird. And then, of course, in typical Jasnah fashion, I think Wit is a lot more enamored with her than Jasnah is with him, which is kind of funny because Jasnah, of course. I just think that was an odd choice, but I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But speaking of Wit, though, that last chapter where he's losing his memory, and then you see him repeat the same thing over again, but it happened slightly differently. That was creepy. That was crazy. Oh my gosh, what is happening there? That was so scary. If Wit's losing it, then we have no hope, because Wit is up till this point the one character that seems to know what's going on in the Cosmere, and he's the only person that knows what's going on in the Cosmere. But the fact that he can now be manipulated, it looks like, and someone can manipulate him, is very worrisome. Very worrisome. If Wit can be manipulated, we are all in loads of trouble. As far as bigger picture Cosmere stuff, I know I missed a lot of stuff. I think I caught some stuff. There's definitely Mistborn references, which I thought were cool. I enjoyed seeing those overlaps. There's some overlaps with Fabrials and like the metal that they talk about it in some of the like little preludes between, like before the chapter. You know what I'm talking about. A little paragraph that happens before the chapter. What's it called? I forgot. But there's some moments where they're talking about Fabrials and they're talking about the metal that has been experimented with, like capturing the spren and stuff, and how the metal reacts. And some of the ways that the metal reacted was the same way that metal reacts in Mistborn, which I thought was pretty neat. I haven't read Warbreaker, and I know there's tons of Warbreaker stuff in this, and I missed it all. Most likely. I will read Warbreaker. I'm planning on reading it this year, and then maybe some of this stuff will make sense to me. From what I understand, Nightblood is a big part of Warbreaker as well, I think. I do plan on reading Warbreaker before the year is out, so hopefully I can make some connections later. So, how did I feel about this book in the end? 5 stars. It's still 5 stars. I had a great time with it. I feel like I didn't have as great of a time because getting into it, I was a bit skeptical. I had a little trouble with the pacing, and also just following Venli. I almost forgot to talk about Venli. I love Venli, but following her flashbacks and Eshonai and the listeners' flashbacks, I didn't always feel like we got a lot of information there. Sometimes it just felt like filler. I know it wasn't, and we did get some information, but it just, I don't know. The flashbacks were kind of boring to me sometimes, and I didn't love that part of the book. The flashbacks have always been super interesting to me, but not in this book. So that was weird. It was just a weird experience with this book. I ended up loving this book, but along the way, I kind of had that like Oathbringer experience, the same experience I had with book 3, where along the way I was kind of skeptical, and then at the end, I like it. I had really a similar experience with Rhythm of War. So I don't know if I was to like rank all the books, where exactly Rhythm of War would sit for me. I think it's still Words of Radiance would still be my favorite. So much cool stuff did happen in Rhythm of War, so it's hard, but I don't know. Rhythm of War and Oathbringer are kind of tied for me at this point, so I think I might go like Words of Radiance, Oathbringer. I liked the end of Oathbringer a lot more. And then maybe Rhythm of War, and then maybe Way of Kings. Although Way of Kings is great, it's just that not as much happens in Way of Kings, just like plot-wise, obviously, because it's the first book. I don't know, I probably shouldn't even try to rate them because that's a ridiculous fool's errand. Look, all these books are amazing. The whole series is amazing. And I don't know why I'm telling you that, because if you've made it this far into this video, you already know that. You're probably already a fan. So if you've gotten this far, I would love to hear your thoughts. Just be careful in the comments of spoilers. Just like, I don't know, maybe do the enter bar thing. So say like, hi, and then enter, and then you can talk your spoilers, because just in case someone clicks on this video and they haven't read Stormlight Archives, I would hate to spoil anybody. Guys, there's so much more we could talk about, but this video is already ridiculously long, but feel free to hit me up if you want to discuss further. I also have an Instagram where you can DM me if you would like. So please tell me, did you like Rhythm of War? Is it your favorite Stormlight Archive book? Is it your least favorite Stormlight Archive book? I would love to know. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you've made it this long into this video, you're a real MVP. You're amazing. If you've made it this far, what can we do? Leave a little drum emoji down below if you made it this far. Get it? Rhythm of War? I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Keep reading great books, and I can't wait till book 5. Okay, bye.